Hello everyone, we are one day away from VCT Ascension Pacific kicking off. Finally, every other region, we even already know who's making it in from EMEA, and we still have no idea who's even a candidate to get in the very last moments of Ascension for Pacific. But it's going to be 10 teams. Why do I still have music playing? Let's turn that off. And of course, only one of them will be able to get into VCT Pacific. Win the tournament, you are now included into the VCT system. And of course, with the changes to how the whole promotion and relegation works, there's a good chance that you can continue to fight for your spot and stay within VCT Pacific. So this is a big deal. Like this is a game changer. This is a dream changer. This is a absolute career move if he can win Ascension Pacific. We already went through the 10 teams. If you missed that, make sure to check out the playlist introducing them just for a quick rundown and overview of how each team plays and what they went through in their own regions. But now let's see how they stack up against each other in our tier list, followed by our Pickems. Okay, because a lot of these logos are just like dark navy or black, we decided to just make another row, but this bottom row is just the candidates. This is tiny. Here, let's zoom in a bit more. So we have Boom Esports, Disguised, Full Sense, GFT, NAOS, Oblivion Force, Rapid Lofi, Revenant, RIDDLE ORDER, and some Prisa Gaming. Just going to be honest, if we're ranking off of logos, RIDDLE ORDER absolutely would be the winners. But anyway, where to start? All right, let's start. Okay, first of all, listen, you call me biased, whatever you want, but I think a lot of people agree. I think a lot of people who have played against them agree, who have scrimmed against them. We've heard rumors of that. People who have watched them from other regions agree that I think some Prisa Gaming deserves to be talked about as one of the favorites. I don't think they're like necessarily number one, but I think what they've shown is very strong, right? I think they're very strong across multiple layers of the game, right? Whether it comes to like having creative compositions and understanding strengths and weaknesses, then having good macro and set plays, and then still having backup plans and small tactics, and then still having individuals who can clutch up. So the reason I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna put them first just because I'm going to put them there anyway. I know that, so that's why. But I don't necessarily. Maybe we'll change the order because I do wonder. Like, there's no way Margaret plays another, like, 600 rounds only of Cypher. So, I don't know what that looks like. We have no idea what this team looks like when they don't play Cypher. You know what I mean? Like, we've just never seen them not play Cypher. It's actually insane. Well, that was the easy part. Okay, so let's talk about other teams that might move up into the first row. Listen, this isn't final. One of these, if not more, our teams are going to move up into the first row. Honestly, listen, I cannot in good conscience put RIDDLE ORDER in the top. I'm gonna, like, I know there's a lot of hype around them and a lot of people have been telling me like I think RIDDLE's gonna be favorites, and I'm like, I don't know if they're favorites. I think they're strong. I think they absolutely can win, and not just in the sense of like any of these teams can win. I actually think RIDDLE ORDER can win. Like if they play their best games, they could win. But like they would have to play their best games every time for me to consider them favorites. You know what I mean? Like I think they've shown more weaknesses, in fact, than like almost any of these teams. Yeah, like I feel that SPG, Full Sense, Boom, and NAOS all had more like consistent strengths that carried them over the finish line. Whereas RIDDLE ORDER, I think, were like all pretty good across multiple parts of the game, but then there were so many other inconsistencies in the execution. Oh, Disguised. I don't know. Well, okay. Listen, I think Disguised for me is probably just within this tier. I don't know if I would ever put Disguised into the favorites category. But we'll get to Disguise here in a second. So, okay, so put RIDDLE ORDER back. Now, between these three... So, okay, so from here, probably there's a good chance that, like, maybe this changes, and then maybe one of these teams moves down. Part of me wants to put Boom in the favorites category, like might be winners category, and here's why. So in my video, if you watched it, and if you didn't, you should go watch it, so do that. But if you haven't watched it, what I talk about is I think Boom's tactics are really good, like in terms of how to set up fights, like how to set up advantageous fights, how to set up good trades. Like I actually think Boom's really, they're some of the best players to do that within Ascension Pacific. I think so. But I think they rely a lot on that, right? They rely a lot on like, hey, we're going to set up this fight and win it, and that's how we win games. But part of me wonders if that's good enough for Ascension, right? Like, I don't think it's good enough if you're playing in VCT Pacific, let alone obviously at an international tournament like Masters or Champions, because you need to have very, very solid foundations of macro as well at that level. But maybe, because obviously those tactics are still based on the very, very basics of like a default and very basic start of round for maps. So maybe even if you don't have like really good push and pull and all the macro plays and round conditioning, etc., I mean, maybe just getting a numbers advantage every time is good enough to win Ascension. That's how I feel. I don't know. I was actually pretty impressed with Boom. In some ways, I don't know. Leviathan is such a good pickup for Full Sense, by the way. If it wasn't for Leviathan, I think Full Sense might even be down here in this row. But okay, let's put Boom up there. This tier list, we're not going to do like left to right order, because I think especially with Ascension, it's so hard to rate them. It's so hard to rate them side by side. So just consider this just tiers. Don't look at the order within the tier, which is why I'm not doing a power ranking. That's why I'm doing a tier list. So then might be finalists. Like, these are teams where it's like they're really strong. They have clear strengths, but they also have some more distinct weaknesses that I think may not, you know, it's not looking like they should be it's like their tournament to lose. It's their tournament to try to win, right? I think they have to either clean up a bit or have a bit more color, take a bit more risk, something like that, to carry them over the line. There is an argument for NAOS to maybe be considered in the conversation up top, but I think they're pretty it's funny to say when it comes to the Philippines and Valorant, and now specifically as a brand. But I actually think they might be one of the more standard teams at this tournament, but not like the cleanest. So, yeah, if you're going to play fairly standard in terms of what your reactions are to reads and, you know, how you force reads and how you read the map and what your defaults are, then you have to be really clean. I don't know if they're that clean enough to be considered up top. But they're obviously still very strong. They're obviously individually all very talented as well. I'm a little bit partial towards this team too. So I would love to see them win, and I think they can. But I don't know if I would consider NAOS over in this tier. I just want to say this. I think in the long term, let's say both teams continue to grow. Like, let's say they start on this graph and both of them are on an upwards trajectory. I think NAOS eventually becomes a better team than Boom. Like, I think NAOS has a better foundation, if that makes sense. But I think currently Boom is just stronger and they know how to press their advantages and strengths better. When it comes to Riddle Order and Disguised, Riddle Order, I mean, we just talked about it in our last video of introducing each team. I actually think JoJo has a pretty good read on the game. I think that he actually has some really good reads on how the opponent reacts when they're on defense, like what their actions are, and then processing that and saying, okay, this is the opponent's plan. That's great. I also think they do a very good job of, hey, let's send like a deep fake or let's send a deep lurk to make sure that the defense has to react to it, and then we get in for free into a site. Like, they do things like that very well. They know how to basically pressure parts of the map to force reactions out of their opponents. But this is a double-edged sword, because I think part of the reason they do that is maybe because they also understand that their set plays aren't the greatest. So rather than being like, even if it's even numbers, we know exactly how to break through the site, it's more like, well, we need to have the numbers advantage to break through this site. And so it's good that they know how to do that, but the execution is quite lacking. Like, there were rounds where I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, where are we looking? Like, I'm looking at the mini map, and, you know, especially some of the academy, the younger players, right? Like Ace, Yatsuka, and Kaede. Like, I'm looking at the mini map, I'm like, and I see a kill feed, and I see either them or their teammate die. I'm like, how did they die? Like, you guys have so many people here to be covering every angle. And then I rewatched the mini map, and I'm like, oh, because you weren't covering each other's angles. Like, you were either distracted by something else, or maybe someone calmed something, and you look away, and then you get timinged, and it's like, things like that you will get punished for when you're playing against tougher teams. And then when it comes to Disguised, I mean, Disguised is very, very powerful. Let's just put it that way. Like, individually, this team is probably one of the best. They're very, very skilled. There's no doubt about that. And I cannot imagine. I imagine we will see comp changes, but until we see what those comp changes are, the only thing I have to go off of is the fact that they play double duelist on every single map of Split 2. And I don't know if that's going to cut it. Thankfully, they don't just like turn off their brains and all in every time. So that's good. But like, I think teams like Full Sense Movements and Prisa Gaming would punish that, if that makes sense. Because now you're playing against other people who also frag really well, but now they're going to use like their agents and their teamwork to overcome that. So as someone who's being somewhat more objective, I'm like, okay, like I think they could win, but until I see it, like these are teams that's like, okay, until I see it, like the first couple games, it's hard for me to be like, oh, you're winning this tournament. Then we have Revenant, Oblivion Force, Rapid Lofi, and JFT. I'm very torn Revenant because I actually think Revenant has a decent chance. The best way to put it is Revenant in a vacuum, I think, would be in this tier. Like, I look at Revenant and I'm like, I think they could win Ascension. But then I look at what other teams we're talking about and I'm like, how confidently do I think Revenant can beat how many of these teams consistently? And I don't know. These teams are tough. These teams are tough. And it's one of those things where it feels kind of weird because it's like, it's not because I think Revenant is lacking a lot more than these teams. I just think maybe they have more clearer strengths. That's how I feel. So, because when I was reviewing Revenant's games in my head, I was like, dude, I think Revenant could win Ascension. Like, I don't think they're favorites, but I think they could win, which would be this tier. But then looking at every other team, I'm like, oh, there's actually a lot of good teams this time at Ascension Pacific. It's just that I think Revenant's better than a dark horse. I think Revenant's better than a dark horse. Like, some people are calling Revenant the dark horse of this tournament. I think Revenant deserves to be included in the conversation here. And maybe they should be. Maybe they should be. Maybe they should be. Oblivion Force, I think, is a dark horse. Let's just put it that way. I think Oblivion Force is a dark horse because, like, listen, this team doesn't get to this team. They all, or not all, I don't think all of them, but a lot of them are like working jobs and then coming home and playing their matches. So like, this isn't even a slight against them. It's actually a miracle that they're doing this. But obviously that leads to a lot of inconsistencies when it comes to their teamwork and their calls. So, which is very apparent. But it's also very apparent that they're very skilled, because if you're able to get by with that to come up and represent your region and compete at Ascension, you're clearly very talented. So I think Oblivion Force is a dark horse where it's like, okay, well now that you know you're going to Ascension, now that you're locked in for it and you're playing these matches, now, like, if you do play at your best, they could do some damage, in my opinion. I'm fine with just one team being in that tier. When it comes to, I mean, just for the sake of keeping the theme of might be, we're calling them might be underdogs. And they might be underdogs, but they might be dark horses, right? I think that's the best way to look at it. Rapid Lofi and JFT. I mean, JFT, there's an argument here to put them in dark horses. I think the way that JFT plays, like very aggressive, very confident, taking fights, I think that would have worked last year. I don't know if it works against these teams at the top this year, like consistently enough. You know, they could still take maps, but and as for Rapid Lofi, I just don't think they're consistent enough. I guess that's the best way to put it. I think they have a great story ahead of him, but I think Rapid Lofi is probably, like, JFT is kind of okay, there's a bit of a question mark, but I'm going to put them in underdogs, whereas Rapid Lofi, I'm like, no, I think they're underdogs. They could do damage, but I think they're underdogs for sure, given what we've seen from their games. I mean, Revenant dark horses do make runs. Like, this dark horse doesn't mean that there's a difference between dark horses and underdogs, right? Listen, for the sake of the balance, because I don't want it to be too top heavy. I think first of all, I think this is generally how I feel about this tournament. Like, this, I actually think Ascension Pacific has a good chance of being a very, very competitive and exciting tournament. Like, I think all the regions look a lot better than last year. I think all of them look pretty solid. There isn't really any one team where I'm like, I don't really want to watch their matches. I'm just going to be honest. Last year, I was like, I don't really want to watch D plus Kia's matches. But yeah, no, let's put him here. Let's put him here for the balance. I don't know. I think there's reason to be excited. I think there's reasons to get excited for Revenant. But how do I feel about the rest of it? Full Sense, Boom, Prisa Gaming as favorites. I'm okay with that. NAOS, RIDDLE disguised as right below. Like, you know, they're looking to challenge these teams and take over. I'm okay with that. And then the rest I'm okay with as well. Just as a disclaimer, once again, these aren't necessarily in order. It's just a tier, right? So I guess if you're looking at who I think are favorites, it's Full Sense, Boom, and Prisa Gaming. But I think NAOS, RIDDLE, and Disguise are very strong candidates. I think Revenant and Oblivion Force could go on a run, so to speak. And Rapid Lofi and JFT, like, they are here to prove themselves to me, in my opinion. So those are my 4 tiers of the 10 teams. Honestly, I think this was a tough tier list, to be very honest. So I'm really excited. But this did not take into account their bracket. So now let's take a look at the bracket and see where they stack up. All right, let's zoom in. We'll bounce around the upper and lower bracket. Okay, whew, right off the bat, Revenant versus Prisa Gaming. Oh boy. Oh boy. Someone's asking, if Revenant Esports beats Prisa Gaming, would they be one of the favorites? As long as it's not Prisa Gaming, just like for whatever reason, just like not playing the game, you know, whether it's because like these players have never traveled or whatever. Like, I'm not saying obviously Revenant has to deal with that as well, but I'm just saying, like, as long as Prisa's playing like somewhat well and Revenant beats him, I would say that gives me a lot more faith for Revenant, for sure. 100%. It wouldn't really take away too much from Prisa for me, but I think it would add a lot more for Revenant. But I mean, as you've noticed, if there's one team I'm going to be a little bit biased for, and I also do think just within the region, Prisa Gaming showed a bit more. They showed a bit more resilience in their actual gameplay rather than like just also the mental and like individual clutches, if that makes sense. Like the way they adapt when push comes to shove. The way they changed their game plan a bit, like when Margaret was getting targeted, things like that. So I'm gonna see Prisa, but I don't think it's one-sided. I think this game could be a real banger. Full Sense versus Oblivion Force. Now this one, this one, if Full Sense loses, I think that takes away points from Full Sense. Sorry to Oblivion Force, but like if Oblivion Force wins this, giga props to Oblivion, but like, that's like, you should be losing faith in Full Sense, in my opinion. And then let's go through here before we jump down to the lower finals or the lower bracket. Oh man, if Prisa wins, it's Riddle versus SPG. Oh my god, this is a banger. This is a mega banger, especially because I imagine Riddle brings out the Haven in this game, because by accident they didn't get to show it. Now that's to their advantage. I'm gonna give Prisa the edge, but I would be a little scared. NAOS versus Boom is this one is well, this one's a banger for multiple reasons. Tell you what, the chat's gonna be a banger for this one for all the wrong reasons. NAOS versus Boom Esports. I give the edge to Boom. There is a lower bracket. It's just, it gets so small if we do that. So I give the edge to Boom. I give the edge to Boom Esports. Okay, Disguise versus Full Sense. Oh. You guys think Full Sense easy? Oh, I mean, listen, Disguise is like cracked. Like, there's no doubt that Disguise is a cracked roster. There's no doubt about that. It's just that, like, Full Sense is pretty cracked too. I do think Full Sense plays better as a team, which is why I would give the edge to Full Sense. I think Disguise might actually even be more cracked at a purely individual level. But I think Full Sense playing as a team with the experience, etc., should give them the edge. JFT versus Rapid Lofi. This one I think this one's a bit of a coin toss as well. You know, two of the more relatively unknown teams and unknown regions going up against each other. In this one, I think I give the edge to JFT. Like, if they play full confidence, I think JFT takes the edge. I think just purely off of momentum, I think JFT will come out swinging at better potential. But NAOS versus Oblivion Force. Oh, is this where the dream ends? Listen, no matter, this one kind of stinks for JFT versus Rapid Lofi, because I think whoever loses, they lose to whoever comes down from Revenant or Prisa Gaming. So I think that's that. NAOS and Oblivion Force. Like, my heart wants to send Oblivion Force deeper into the bracket, but it's like, do I really think NAOS is going to go out in the lower round one? See, this is where we see the difference between... Okay, so now my tier list, I'm feeling better about my tier list, because I think this is the difference between, like, the, like, underdog and dark horse teams and not. It's like, they could, but once you look at the bracket, it's like, well, I don't know. Do you really think they're going to send NAOS home in lower round one? It's like, oh, probably not. Riddle Order versus NAOS. Oh, this one's a heartbreaker, no matter who loses, if this match happens. But I'm going to give it to Riddle. I think Riddle has better reads. NAOS has learned to play pretty good standard Valorant, but I don't know if it's consistent enough that sometimes the messiness and the individual play of Riddle, yeah, like basically the aim crack, like you guys say, wouldn't shake them. I think NAOS would get shaken a little bit. Disguise versus Revenant. Ooh, what are we thinking here? What are we thinking here, chat? Disguise versus Revenant? I'm going to give it to Revenant. I actually think I'm going to give more points to Coach Fields than Coach Alexar. I think what Fields was able to do with Revenant in Split 2, like basically turn a new leaf, was pretty big. And then they've had so much time since then to brush up. But this is probably my punt pick. This is probably the pick where I'm like, everything else I'm like, listen, I felt pretty confident. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. This one's probably the one where I'm like, oh, I'm taking a chance here. Okay, now going back to the upper bracket. Ooh, SPG versus Boom Esports. The home crowd buff for Boom. Does it carry them into the upper finals, into the stadium? Does Boom get to play offline in front of the fan base? Which, by the way, basically the home crowd buff doesn't exist for these because these are all online matches, mind you. It's just the... Well, I guess this... starting this day, is it? Is it? Wait, it's this? No. So you need to get to the upper finals and lower round 4 to play in front of the crowd. So Boom Esports doesn't quite have the home crowd buff yet. They do have the jet lag buff. I think if it was a best of 5 right off the bat, I think I would give SPG the edge because they would catch on to like how to not give Boom the fights they want. But even if you study it, I think Boom can win this in a best of 3. Full Sense versus JFT. I mean, I think whoever wins between Disguise and Full Sense here should move on into the upper finals. I'm just gonna be honest. I think this side of the bracket is a lot easier than this side. Let's just be very honest. So whoever wins here, I think it would make no sense for them to drop down. No offense to JFT. That brings us to JFT versus Riddle Order. Sorry, JFT. I think the run ends there. Some Prisa Gaming. Oh, the rematch. The rematch. Does Revenant get the rematch buff? No. Sorry for leading you on. Okay, so now we go to the arena. Now you're playing in front of a crowd. I think Boom. See, this is the thing though. If Boom doesn't choke before the grand finals, does that mean they have to choke in the grand finals? Because I'm pretty sure they're going to choke at least once. So I don't know what's going to happen here. And then, dude, Riddle versus Prisa Gaming again? Dude, what is with the rematches for SPG? But I feel like in a rematch, Riddle actually could win in a rematch. Maybe I should have had Prisa Gaming losing in the beginning. And then Full Sense versus Prisa Gaming. This is not a rematch. It's a best of 5. I'm going to do it. The thing is here, just hold on. Maybe I won't do this. Hold on. We're not set on the grand final. But here's where... Oh, you guys can't see it. Here's the thing. I actually, as much as I am a big fan of Prisa Gaming, and I love what they look in, and I would love to see them in Tier 1, and I think they're a great new vision for Korean Tier 2 Valorant, like upcoming Korean Valorant. I also agree that having another Korean team in Pacific would be kind of boring. Listen, I'm going to say Prisa Gaming, because guess what? If I do that and I'm correct, I win because I was correct. And if I don't, and we have, whether it's Boom or whatever other team, we all win because we get a non-Korean team into VCT Pacific, and that's great. So this is fantastic. These are going to be my Pickems. Let's zoom out a little bit so you see the entire thing, which is really, it's very, very tall. There you go. Except you can't see it. So there you go. That's where we stand. We got some Prisa going all the way. Let me know how crazy I am. Let me know how much I overcooked down in the comments. And of course, we will be watch partying almost every day. There are 2 days where I'm on the Korean broadcast, so we won't be streaming those days. But every of the other matches, we will be live streaming both here on YouTube and Twitch. So make sure you follow, subscribe to the channels, etc., and come join the watch parties. And we will not be doing biased watch parties, even if some Prisa Gaming is playing. So we will just kind of be breaking down and seeing what the teams have prepped. That's going to be it for now. I will see you all for the watch parties.